Hello everyone, my name is Lisa Honoro. I am a senior public health science major, and today's interview is going to be with Dr. Ian Porter. He is a flight surgeon and is currently located in Jacksonville, Florida at the moment. So we are going to give it away, and I hope you are all able to gain something from this interview.
Ian, this is Lisa, and she's going to really guide us through our conversation. But I'm here just because since you're here, I had to be here just to get the chance to say hey. So, how you doing?
Oh, just wonderful, Wendy. I'm doing fine. We're on hopefully the backside of COVID down here in Jackson anyway, and hopefully as a society, right, as we move forward. But we're doing fine down here. I hope you guys are doing well up there in Maryland. I assume both of you are in Maryland.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Lisa, the last time that Dr. Porter and I spoke was at the very beginning of COVID. Do you remember, Ian? And I called you and I said, how are we going to talk to students about, how they can get clinical experience during this time? And you really helped me to put together sort of a informational interview where we could maybe, offer students some valuable questions that they could at least ask physicians while we didn't know when they would ever get to see them again in person or even virtually or anything. So that was really helpful. And I think it gave people a lot to think about during that time. So much appreciated.
Well, I'm happy to be able to do that, Wendy. You've helped me so much in my life. And so anytime there's a chance for me to give back or contribute, I'm really happy. So, that's par for the course right now. Like we've been always sculpting and modeling around COVID, right? So, that's not a surprise that hopefully those kids were able to, bend and, bob and weave with the challenges that COVID bring along. So,
yeah. Well, they came along. They did. And now it feels like opportunities have opened up again. So that's good. But I'll turn it over to Lisa, and she has lots of really great questions lined up that I'm excited to hear your dialogue about.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, hello, Doctor. Hi, Dr. Porter. It's lovely to meet you. Wendy has told me great things about you, and I'm very excited for our interview today. So just to get us started, I just wanted to ask, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? So where you're from, any hobbies that you have, for instance, do you go going to sports games or cooking, fishing, whatever you like? And also, what do you hope that your impact is through your career?
Right. So lots of questions, and I'll start off. Hopefully I can keep it all in front of me here. But so I am actually an immigrant, right? So I grew up the first 11 years of my life in the Philippines, and I am a son to missionary parents who came to the States to plant churches. And so I moved here when I was 11 in 1991. And we lived in Gaithersburg, Maryland. So that's actually my home. And I went to Gaithersburg High School. And so, during that time, the Redskins were doing really well. And they're now the Washington Commanders, right? And so that's one of my sports teams. I know we'll probably get to that a little later. Mm-hmm. But that's how my life started in the States. That's where I'm from in the States. And in terms of what I like to do, I have a huge passion for sports, as you can already tell between the banter between Wendy and I, and my wardrobe here looks really professional and doctor-like, I'm sure. And I really like fishing, and I used to fish a lot in my last duty station with the Navy. However, since COVID's come about, I've been very busy working that and modeling around the challenges that COVID throws our way in the Navy. And so I've refocused my energy to my children and the sports that they play. But I still would like to go fishing all the time if I had the opportunity. My goals for the impact of my work, there's so many, but one of the goals for sure is to help people get to medical school and, become good doctors if I'm so chosen to be a mentor. And since Wendy and I have interacted, and since she's helped me get to medical school, I think there have been about 5 or so folks, 3 of which who are in the Navy, who have made it to medical school that I've been able to help out. So that's a big passion of mine, and hopefully it continues. And in terms of impact, since I'm in the aerospace medicine field, I hope that my work helps get people to space safely, just in general. So we'll start with that.
No, that's wonderful. I just wanted to thank you for sharing all of your experiences and kind of like giving us a little background to who you are, because I think it helps us as students, pre-med students, kind of like humanize the role of like medicine and doctors in general. So I wanted to start off, since you already segued into aerospace, I wanted to start off by asking, like, could you tell us a little bit more about aerospace medicine, what it entails, and what would you say is your favorite part so far?
Yeah, so I'll be completely honest. I didn't go to medical school wanting to do aerospace medicine or get into a residency that had aerospace medicine in it. I actually, I was very fortunate to get into University of Maryland, and I really had goals to become a trauma surgeon. Part of my background in the Navy, I was a medic, or a corpsman, as they call it, for the Corps. And so trauma and treating people in that sort of situation and environment was something very familiar to me. And even in medical school, I flourished in the surgical parts of, second, third and fourth year. And even while we were first learning about medicine, that was really interesting to me. Anatomy was really one of my favorite classes. But during medical school, life situations changed, and I picked a residency that was close to home for my family. And so for my wife, that was Pensacola, Florida. And so when we went to Pensacola, the residency available during that time was family medicine, which was totally opposite from where I wanted to go, right? So surgery, then going to primary care. But it ended up being a good internship year for me. And they actually ended up closing down the residency program. So I had to kind of scramble to find a place where to finish training. And so I matched in family medicine, Fort Belvoir, then flight surgery. And then there was this program called RAM, which stands for Residency in Aerospace Medicine. And during the time, I had an attending physician that kind of mentored me. Her name was Captain Kim Toon now. And she told me, hey, you should go check out this residency called the RAM. I think you might like it. And so what it actually is it's a branch of PrevMed, so preventative medicine. And the board certification from preventative medicine are 3 branches. You have PrevMed, you have Occ Health, and then you have aerospace medicine. And so aerospace medicine, if you're residency trained in doing that, you have to be able to be a physician that can take care of the aircrew community and the maintainers that take care of the aircraft. So a large population of people, and keep that population healthy. So the reason why the Navy invests residency time and money into physicians like this is because a lot of these physicians go on to aircraft carriers to manage the population on board there. And I don't know if you all know this, but all commanding officers of aircraft carriers typically is a flyer. It's typically a former pilot. So very, very, tight knit with the SMO is what they're called. And so that's aerospace medicine. Most RAM trained folks or aerospace trained folks have a master's in public health, which is something I also got through residency.
That's really wonderful. And me being a public health science major, I think that's kind of interesting. It's really interesting to hear about. And preventative medicine is so important. And I personally hadn't thought of it in space. But I think that it's really cool that that's a field that you were able to like get into. And I see that like medicine isn't like one way. Like you were training for trauma, but then you ended up in aerospace. And so far, I from what you're telling me, I gather that it's been a very rewarding experience. It
has. It's really been a good experience. And it kind of makes sense, right? So you being a public health minded person, it kind of makes sense, right, Lisa? Like you would think that there's going to be a lot of preventative measures before you start sending people to space. Like you can't just up there, right? And so recognizing that while I was in residency, I pitched this opportunity to the Navy to be a test subject in NASA. And I actually got to be a test subject there and take a look at what, before COVID, what isolation and living in space would potentially be like if you went on like a long mission, like a 3.5-year mission to Mars. So yeah, it's been a rewarding experience, I would say.
That's wonderful.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, Ian? Because I remember the Facebook posts and the Instagram posts. You were actually in isolation for like a month or so, weren't you?
45 days, 68 days of training total. And this is before COVID, but it's just really funny. Like the crew, we all still are on a text group together, right? And we all still laugh about that, how just right before COVID, we were already preparing for it, right? But HERA is what it's called. If you go on the NASA website, you could probably search for HERA, and what you'll find is it stands for a Human Exploratory Research Analog. And what they do is they try to select for people that have astronaut-like traits and put together a crew. And it would seem like initially it's like a social experiment, and I think a lot of what they're learning has to do with that. And they want to put together an optimal crew, because you would surmise that maybe, we would have different countries involved. So you really have to be careful and pick a good crew. But there was also lots of things going on in there, like facial recognition, working with people in a time delay situation, kind of like The Martian. I don't know if you guys have seen The Martian, but if you haven't, I would check it out, because it's sort of like how it was in HERA. And then, we had a finite amount of space between 4 people. The square footage was quite limited. And we lived in like a spaceship-shaped cylinder for 45 days and got to know each other's mannerisms, smells, inclinations, what we liked and what we didn't like. And hopefully NASA takes all that data and shares it with the world so that they can have a successful Mars mission when they go. But in a nutshell, that's sort of what it was. It was to help contribute to the eventual mission to Mars. That's our hope anyway.
Yeah, that's really great. Honestly, that experience sounds so like invasive almost too.
Yeah.
But I think that it's such a good experience to have, and also like it will be beneficial for the rest of the world in the future. So that's really wonderful. I wanted to now segue into talking more about your Navy experience, because after speaking with Wendy and from our conversation, I learned that you were in the Navy for about like 6 years before finishing your education. Could you tell us a little bit more about your experience and your advice for anyone interested in joining?
Sure. So full disclosure, and I think it would be clear to anyone who watches this video, perhaps anyway, that, I'm a non-traditional student, right? So I initially, when I graduated from high school, I thought I was going to, get into college, no problem. My sisters, when we moved here, as I shared with you, they were really driven and just were really great with academics. And so both of them, got into Johns Hopkins with full scholarships. And I thought in my mind anyway, that I would get in and just be fine. But I ended up going to Frostburg State University. I don't know if you know what school that is. Mm-hmm. But I didn't do well. I think I was flunking, to be quite honest with you. And Wendy could probably tell you that, because she saw my transcripts. But I really had a lot to learn about life and just managing time, money, how to study. And so I joined the Navy, right? And looking back, I thought that was probably a great choice for an 18-year-old back then, right? It's because at least I recognized that I was wasting money and time, if I didn't have a goal. So I joined the Navy, and really, I joined the Navy because they were the branch of service that gave my parents the most attention and time. And for myself, that meant a lot to me. And I still remember the recruiter's name. His name was Petty Officer Chris Heyer, and that was in 2000. And, he told me that job openings consisted of corpsman, and corpsman. So there wasn't really much choice. And corpsman, again, is medic. And I had no idea I'd be going into the medical field at all. but I took it because I was really just desperate to find a situation where I could feel that I was contributing to society, that I was doing something important. And what ended up happening was a really great adventure in the Navy for almost 7 years. Most corpsman contracts are about 6 years. And somewhere towards the end, my mother got cancer and she got sick. She was actually dying. So I ended up extending for about 8 months, past the 6 years, just so I could get my bearing and also deal with that. And soon after that, I would meet Wendy, Nick, and the crew over there, Michael, and start my journey at the University of Maryland as a non-traditional student. I think I was 27 years old or 26 years old when I started school back up again. So yeah, but I will say the Navy taught me all those things I needed to learn: time management, how to manage money, how to study, and so yeah, it was the right choice, I think, for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'm sure, I honestly think that that's a really smart decision that you made, realizing that maybe school wasn't necessarily in your cards at that moment, and then saving that money like you talked about. Because I think that a lot of students would rather go through college without any knowledge of what they're doing, and that can be a waste of money at the time. So that's really smart with what you decided to do. So I guess we can go into a little bit more of your personal life, and talk about your family a little bit. Could you tell us a little bit about your family, and how you've kind of balanced work and family life?
Sure. I think so. My family, I have a wife named Sarah. She's from Pensacola, Florida. We met in the Navy when, in my first duty station there. And so we've been together a long time, almost 20 years. And so we have two kids. My daughter, Gracie, she's 11 years old. And I have a son, Maximus, who is 5 years old. And I love them all very much. And I really try very hard to have a good work and life balance, understanding that is always going to be in flux. And so, some of the darkest times probably was during when COVID popped off, March through probably a year and a half later from when March 2020 hit. I remember seeing, I came back early from vacation. I had some free time that I was able to take, and I came back early to Jacksonville because, I don't know if you know this, but Jacksonville and Florida in general was just a hotbed for COVID. And I actually ended up seeing the first COVID-19 patient in my air station, Naval Air Station Jacksonville. It was 18 March 2020. And we ended up writing a paper, just a case report on it. And the point of me telling you that is I was so consumed by the mission and what the Navy needed from me that, for a while, I had to ignore that good family, work, and life balance, But what I try and do now is really make up some of that lost time. And where I'm actually at right now is an ice rink. So my daughter and my son have lessons and practices. And I just do my best. If I could grab a piece of time, I'm spending time with you guys here, right? To give back to the community. But at the same time, they also know I'm here watching them and being with them. So I think there's ways to be successful and having a healthy balance. And I just try to execute as best as I can.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there any advice you would give to pre-med students who may not be in that stage of life where they have to balance a family of their own, but trying to balance their personal life and their pre-med lifestyle?
Absolutely. I would just say recognize and draw the boundaries early, because sometimes it's too late and you might feel trapped. So, if something's important to you, like physical fitness, family, go ahead and carve out the pieces of time that you need for those things early. That way, and you can tell your bosses, that's okay. I've learned to do that. I'm not going to say I'm perfect and I did that every time, but you'll find a way to do it and just recognize it early so that you can be happy, right? Because being a doctor is not just about being a good doctor. It's about being a good human being too, right? And being a good father, being a good friend, family member. So that's a really good question. and just recognize those things early, because in the medical field, and I'm sure you're well aware of this, Lisa, that there's a lot of burnout. So it's really important, and that's a good question.
Yeah. I'm definitely taking notes on that because I myself, starting out as a freshman, it was very easy to get in my head and just stay focused on, okay, I have to do school all the time kind of thing. But I do understand and recognize that there are things that I love that I shouldn't have to give up just because I'm pursuing medicine. So yeah, thank you so much for the advice. I'm going to segue now into talking a little bit about the sports teams that you like, because I see that you have your hockey jersey or sweater on. So do you mind telling us, like, what's your favorite sports team? And if you had to choose an MVP, who would it be?
Yeah, so my good friend Wendy is, she's a the New York fan. So I'm going to hurt her a little bit here, but she knows all this stuff. Michael in the office used to like the Philadelphia teams. I don't know if he's still around, but I really like Washington sports. It's kind of where I grew up. I had an uncle when we were new to the country that just took me to these things. His name was Uncle Audie. I always will be super thankful to him. And, he likes the Dallas Cowboys. I like the team formerly known as the Redskins, who are now the Commanders. And MVPs for this past year would probably be a tie between Ohio State's Terry McLaurin, who is a wide receiver, and Taylor Heineke, number 4, the quarterback. He went to Old Dominion, I think, in Virginia. But, those two guys played really hard and really well, and they're hard to not like, even if you don't like, the Commanders. And then, I have a tie. So obviously I'm wearing Washington Capitals gear. So that is another favorite team of mine. I grew up watching the Capitals, and I grew up watching the Penguins beat the Capitals many times. And so, easy MVPs for Capitals fans out there would probably be Alex Ovechkin. And I actually am wearing, Wendy, this would surprise you, and Lisa, I'm actually wearing number 19. That's Nicholas Backstrom. He's kind of like the guy behind the scenes that gives Ovechkin assists, and I've always liked him for that. So he's not the center stage guy, but he's kind of the guy in the background, doing stuff. So there you go. Mouthful.
Do you still have that jersey that I gave you when you graduated from medical school?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Who was that again?
Yeah. Wasn't it Donovan McNabb, number 5?
Oh, it was. It was a joke because he was on the Eagles for so many years, and then he came to play for Washington. That's right.
Yeah. Yes. I still have that. I've not gotten rid of any of that stuff. I still have the number 5 jersey. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I wish I could contribute to the conversation, but I'm not a sports fan. But I'm sure that many of our watchers right now, some of them can relate, and maybe some of them are New York fans like Wendy. Maybe some of them are Philadelphia, Washington.
Are people watching live right now, or is this going to be watched afterwards? Okay.
So you can come and check the comments.
Yeah. I will give you fair warning that you yourself may immerse yourself in the city that you train in the sports. I saw that happening with my classmates. So for me, a lot of the, because the Ravens were hot during that time too. Like a lot of my med school classmates went with the Ravens and went to the Orioles games because it was right next to the school.
Yeah.
Just a nice break from school, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna try and get into sports a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's move on into more of like a community impact.
Sure.
You talked a little bit about it when we were discussing your time in the Navy and with aerospace medicine. So how have you been able to contribute, just to elaborate a little bit more, how have you been able to contribute to the community, big or small, through your journey?
I would say, so I'm going to try and lump this answer into different categories. Mm-hmm. So scientific community wise, I've been able to be fortunate enough to have some publications. So I think that's always important, like in our community, scientific community, that's how we communicate. That's how we collaborate internationally, right? And how we get cited in papers and texts, right? And so scientific community wise, I've been fortunate enough to contribute that way. So since I finished residency and became board certified, I think I have three publications, one of which is an experimental paper, and then also Navy policy, like impacting Navy policy. So a lot of the return to work for air crew regarding previous COVID positives, a lot of that was shaped in Jacksonville, Florida, because we just had a lot of cases. So we didn't know anything back then, about, gosh, what do we do with these folks that had previous COVID or long hauler COVID? How do we get them back controlling aircraft safely? And I've been fortunate enough to be able to contribute to policy and policy that shapes answers to those questions. In terms of community overall, I apologize. A lot of this is centered around COVID, but it's recent. But, for example, hockey, the hockey rink here, I did some like pro bono stuff with them, just like public health stuff, mitigation stuff to allow the kids to play hockey and manage cases when those things came up safely, right? So that how do you chew on, kids skating around the ice with risk, right? And how do you mitigate to prevent infection, like unnecessary infection? And so there's that part, health in the community, and then there's the residents. So I think Wendy alluded to, finding a way to learn during COVID. I've just, I think for me, we've always had open doors to residents and teaching, but recently I've gotten more of a bolus of residents that I've been able to work with and teach. And what I do is I tell them, just like this interview, about my job and how my Navy career has been going. I give them a couple papers to read, and I spend time with them. One of my residents last week, Lieutenant Barnes, I'll just leave her first name out of this. I was able to get her a helicopter ride. So I put her on my Instagram because I'm always recruiting for the Navy and flight surgery. So she said she was definitely going to be a flight surgeon. So whether that's a lie or not, I don't know, but hopefully I see her in the future being a flight surgeon. So I hope that's what you're looking for. Sprinkled in there are, emails and phone calls, maybe even FaceTime and Zoom meetings like this with aspiring medical students or people that have questions. And I think just like there's a balance with family and work, there's also a way to balance, how you give back and contribute to the community, whether it's the scientific community or the community in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that all of these experiences that you've highlighted, as well as especially your experience in the Navy and as a flight medic or surgeon, is very important to contributing to the community as a whole, whether it be the global community or just the local community. I think that it's very important. And you've already tied in some of your personal experiences to how you contribute, like the ice rink that you're talking about, the fact that it's connected to your children. I think that that's very important.
Ian, I remember a conversation in my office, I don't know if you do, where you felt like, I remember you came and you said to me, you know what, this has just gotten really hard and I don't know if I'm going to be staying with medicine. Do you remember that conversation?
I vaguely do. And
I was just like, no, you are. But I just, now having all these years and, how did you push through times when it got to be really challenging? What kind of advice would you give for people who, hit a wall? And, do you ever hit a wall just like, probably talk about COVID again? Like, does it ever feel like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And how do you get through those times?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for that reminder that I went through those times during undergrad. And I'm sure it happened. And I'm actually really happy to hear that back then I was willing to talk about those times, because I think people forget that it's okay to talk about stuff like that. And it's okay to feel like a failure. In fact, if I were to guess what frame of time that is, that was probably, I had a really easy time with organic chemistry. Some of my favorite teachers come from the University of Maryland. I can name them. I'll leave them off the Zoom, but I'll give you hints. I did really well in classes like chemistry, orgo, but I had a really hard time with genetics. And, I felt this immense pressure to just do well, to get straight A's. You gotta do it because, you have a lot to make up. I was an older student. I didn't know how I was going to do well, if I was going to do well, in standardized testing, all that stuff. And I'm really happy to hear that, I was willing to talk to you, Wendy, back then. And please know that I am human, and everyone who's in the doctor profession is human, and doctoring, I should say. And we need to recognize burnout. We need to recognize when we've hit our limits, and that's okay. Okay. A lot of facilities and even in the Navy, there's care teams and teams that are formed by colleagues to make sure that people are doing well, and that's, become more evident during times like COVID, when there's a lot of burnout. Even before COVID, there was burnout. You guys would read articles about that in the newspaper, I'm sure, and in the campus papers. It's just really common. When I hit a wall, I open up to people. Some people may have the opposite reaction and clamp down, but I would encourage folks to open up and reach out to someone that you trust and just show your human side, because sometimes if, let's say, for example, you like fishing, playing hockey, playing football, sometimes you don't have the time or the opportunity to do that, but to be able to unload your problems to a trusted party makes a big impact on yourself. And as a physician, you're taking on a lot of that burden anyway, right? Oh, by the way, in flight surgery or in aerospace medicine, you're also seeing a lot of GP, general practice patients. And a lot of those folks are telling you their problems, and you're taking all that on. And so you've got to be able to learn a way to unload your own problems when it's time.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And also, thank you, Wendy, for that question, because I think that a lot of us as students think that it's, once you have that small thought of, oh, what if medicine isn't the path for me? I mean, that automatically disqualifies you as a candidate for medicine. But as you said before, we're all human. We go through all of this, and we just need to unload sometimes. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Porter. So I just want to sort of close off with asking you about any advice you would give to yourself. So think of your past self in medical school or as a pre-med student. Is there any advice that you would give yourself or give to any pre-med students or any medical students now?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think, taking the whole interview as a whole and picking out the stuff that you like, and applying it to your own life moving forward, right? Because I'm fully aware that, there are many students who, do not have my path, but take the stuff that will help you. But a little tip, if you're going into medicine, you're going to be taking a lot of tests, okay? And what I would tell the younger version of myself is to focus on the stuff you're not good at. It's really easy to recognize what you're good at and to study when you're studying for the boards, whether it's step 1 through step 3, whether it's your board certification after residency, whether it's the, in-service exam. Focus on the stuff that you're not so good at, and you'll do better overall. Because what I've found through the years of testing is that, you know what you're good at, and you have a tendency to do well in those anyways. So the categories that you can improve in, you can really make some big gains focusing on those things. The other thing I would tell myself is to, don't take it too seriously. Just it's evident right from the question from Wendy. Maybe I was putting too much pressure on myself back then, and I'm thankful for some of that. But at the same time, looking back, I think that's some good advice I can give myself, right? Is make sure you take time for yourself and recognize that.
I agree. Thank you so much, Dr. Porter. I do want to leave this space to ask if you have any questions for us, or if you had something else you'd like to share with any of the pre-meds possibly watching in the future.
Sure. All right. So I have a question for you. How has what year are you, first of all, in your adventure in Maryland?
I'm a senior. I'm about to graduate. Very exciting.
Do you have a school out and everything like that?
So I am applying in this upcoming cycle. So I haven't thought, I have a couple schools that I would love to get into, but I haven't started applying yet.
Maryland. That's great. I'm super excited for you. Hopefully, I don't know how much has changed since I've been in school and the application process, but hopefully it's been a good journey for you.
It's been a great journey. Yeah.
It has. Okay.
Lots of fun, lots of memories. I can't wait to tell my future kids about Maryland and, tell everybody really.
Okay. And what kind of doctor would you be if you had a way to choose now?
That's a really good question. I am interested in pediatrics. So I really love working with kids. So I'm interested in finding some kind of pediatric specialty to work in. I'm thinking orthopedics as well. So combining it. So pediatric orthopedics, but I don't know how I'll do in surgery yet. So yeah.
That's great. There is, as you know, there's, pediatric orthopedists out there. So that may be an option for you. Well, I just wanted to ask you, about yourself, because you've heard a lot about my adventures, and, I'm also interested in what you've been through and what you're thinking about. Those are, those are both great fields. I have friends in both fields. Mm-hmm. In fact, Wendy knows some of those people. So congratulations on being a senior, and looking at the calendar, you're getting close, man. That's great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Honestly, I really appreciate you asking. And sure. I think it also shows you are invested in learning more about the upcoming doctors and future physicians in this field. And I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to us and just let us learn more about your journey, honestly.
Yeah, well, the pleasure is all mine, and it's honestly a big honor when your alma mater reaches out to you for these types of things, and it's very humbling to know that students like yourself, the future of medicine, would reach out to someone like me for information and knowledge. So I'm happy to do it. I'll leave with this parting shot, okay? For those of you who are thinking about the Navy, it's a great adventure. It's not perfect, okay? But it's a wild and a great ride. So, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Porter.
Thank you so much. It was really good to see you.
You too, Wendy. Good night,
All
Lisa.
right.
A great time watching the Rangers and Capitals.
Yes, we'll be texting during the Stanley Cup.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll get there.
That's a deal.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye.